Jewel Burks Solomon is the head of Google for startups in the US. She's also a managing partner at CoLab Capital. And I think it's really powerful that when Jewel joined the Google team for this role, she was clear that her goal is to level the playing field for the startup ecosystem. Her startup, PartPick, was acquired by Amazon in 2016, and she has a lot to tell us about her life as an entrepreneur and as an investor. Jewel, we are so delighted to have you join us tonight. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Jewel, you have this really powerful backstory, but I want to get us to the content of today's talk, which is a new capitalism. So I'm going to try to run through some of the highlights. Correct me if I get any of these data points wrong, but want to bring everybody up to speed on your experience. You grew up in the South, the daughter of two entrepreneurial parents. You went to college at Howard University, graduated with a business degree, and your first job after school was at Google. Am I right so far?
Yes, you got it all right.
Okay. So when you left Google, you joined the team at McMaster-Carr, and I think that was really where the original idea for PartPick came to life. So can we jump in there, and if you would share with us where PartPick came from and what made you decide that you wanted to build this company?
Sure. Excuse me. So PartPick really was born out of frustration. I was working, as you mentioned, at a company called McMaster-Carr, and excuse me, experienced the problem firsthand of people not being able to locate the products that they wanted to buy from us. And I was managing the call center, so I was the person who got the escalations when people didn't get the right part. And so basically I got yelled at each and every day. And obviously that wasn't a fun thing to have happen. But I also had a personal story. So my grandfather was looking for a part for his tractors. We have a family farm in Repton, Alabama, and his tractor broke down in the middle of his harvest. And he called me to help him try to find a part. And working at a parts company, I thought this should be pretty easy for me to help him find, and I couldn't find it. So between experiencing the problem with the customers that I was working with and then with my grandfather, I thought, wow, there has to be a solution for this. So I had one of those kind of light bulb moments of, what if you could just take a picture of a part that you were looking to find and use that as the search? And this was back in 2012. So at that time, people were using images to search for various products, like, take a picture of a check to deposit it, or a bottle of wine to find another one, but no one had yet applied that technology to parts. And so that was really the idea. I went from, that kind of light bulb moment to really getting excited about it and really passionate about solving that problem. And then did all the steps to kind of build a team around that, raise some money around that, and really go and execute on that vision.
Awesome. And there's something really significant in how you assembled your team, especially the head of technology. So can you tell me a bit about how you found her and how you two came together to start building up the deep tech that you were working on?
Yeah, so I was fortunate when I came up with the idea, I was living just around the corner from Georgia Tech. And I had done some research and figured out that Georgia Tech had a great program for digital signal processing, machine learning, computer vision, through all the baseline technology that I would need in order to build out this vision. And so at the time I was 23 years old, so I still looked pretty young and could kind of blend in on campus. So I started hanging out on Georgia Tech's campus and going to different events and trying to get looped into the community there. And, started meeting people and talking to them about this idea I have, and trying to find people who could help me in building it. And I met one person after another, and many people later finally found Dr. Ashley Cephas, who became our CTO. And she had the perfect skill set. She was just finishing up her PhD and she was studying computer vision. And so she had been studying for years kind of the background technology of what we wanted to build, and thought the application, the real world application, was really cool. And so, we connected, both Black women, young, looking for what we wanted to do and what we wanted to achieve in life. And so I was able to convince her to start working with me. And that was the best thing that could have happened for the business, because she was the perfect kind of match to what I had on the business side. She had beyond on the technical side. So I think we were definitely a match made in heaven when it comes to kind of that first foundational team. And her story to me is probably even more compelling than mine, in what she's been able to do since we sold the business. She's now leading up bias and AI research at Amazon, as well as doing some really great things in her hometown of Jackson, Mississippi. So I love her story as well. And maybe on the next one of these events, you all can have her here.
Awesome. We would love that. That sounds great. So she's still at Amazon. And so that, brings me to this question of you sold the company to Amazon pretty early on. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Was that always your plan to have this exit strategy, and kind of what happened in those couple of years? It was just such a short time that you got to that level of success. Would love to hear what went down.
Yes, I always had a plan to sell the company. In fact, pretty early on, within the first year, I kind of made a list of the companies that could potentially acquire PartPick. And obviously it was a forward-thinking list, but Amazon was at the top of the list because I knew that they had an interest in making it super simple for customers everywhere to search for all types of products. And I knew that they were selling the types of products that we could recognize. So I thought that would be a really good potential acquirer. I had no idea that it would happen, within 4 years of starting the business. And that actually wasn't my intention. When we were approached by Amazon to sell the business, I was definitely not in the market to sell. So it was definitely a really difficult decision for me to make. And at the time, I really struggled with it. I didn't know if it was the right call. I was uncertain because I hadn't gotten the business as far as I really wanted to get it. But I had to go back and remember that I did put it out there that I wanted to potentially sell the business to a company like Amazon. And also I had to keep in mind the dynamics that were at play at that time. And I was watching that many other companies, small visual search companies, were getting purchased by competitors. I was seeing that probably the most important thing that was happening, at least for me, was the fact that I was having a really hard time raising funds for the business. And I was finding that investors were not really believing that we could execute on this vision. And I think a lot of that had to do with my identity as, a young Black woman founder and the makeup of my team. And so that was something that I had to contend with as well. And so at the end of the day, it was like, hey, we have this great offer on the table, and we can really pursue the vision, continue to pursue the vision with Amazon, get to a point where our technology is in the hands of millions of people, and really understand, what does this end-to-end process look like, from idea to building the team to raising a bit of funding, all the way to getting the company sold, and then further to spending time at Amazon and integrating the technology into the Amazon mobile app. So it ended up being a 7-year journey altogether. And now I have kind of the knowledge that I can use to work with other entrepreneurs and kind of show them how it's done. So that was my master plan. I wanted to understand, what does the process look like from end to end, so that I can go back and help other people do the same thing. And the acquisition allowed me to get to that point.
You do seem to have the entrepreneurial bug, though. Yeah? Like that this was something that was, you wanted to start a company. You were looking for the right idea to start a company and get excited about. Do you see that as something that you continue to pursue, or are you now more interested in advising and being on the investment side of the table?
I think that I will always be an entrepreneur. I got it honest, as you mentioned at the intro. You know, my parents are entrepreneurs. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So I will always be an entrepreneur. And even what I'm doing today, what I'm working on with CoLab Capital, you know, it's a fund, but it's a very entrepreneurial fund. We consider ourselves capital entrepreneurs because we're not just taking the traditional venture capital model and applying it to our focus area is investing in Black entrepreneurs. We said, no, let's look at what would be a model, a new model that would work better for the entrepreneurs that we're trying to serve. And we looked at the market and saw a market opportunity in a similar way that any entrepreneur would. So we think about ourselves, and still we are building a business. It's just a little bit different type of business, but I think it's still very much, I'm tapped into the entrepreneurial side of myself. And I also get a chance to spend just about every waking hour with other entrepreneurs, learning about their businesses and helping them on their journeys as well.
Yeah, that's totally valid. I'm curious, what is the structure then of CoLab Capital that that you think there's more to bring to the table than solely capital to support Black founders? What can you tell us about the whole thesis for the fund?
Sure. So we think about how do we not just bring the capital resources, but also the access to networks, which we see as the other kind of major issue that keeps Black entrepreneurs from being super successful. So we built a model where we're taking into account, yes, we're going to write this check, but we're also going to put sort of the wraparound services and resources along with the check so that the founders are able to get to their markets faster. They're able to find customers. They're able to get their technology stack where it needs to be. All of these things are part of what we think about when we make any investment. And then we also, the structured side of it is really important because one of the things we know and kind of our major thesis around the fund is that we're doing this to disrupt the wealth gap. We think that ownership in business is one of kind of many things that has led in this country, in the United States, to the massive wealth gap that we have. And so we think it's important for us to make sure that there are more Black owners. And so because of that, that means that we can't optimize for founders raising, you know, millions and millions of dollars and putting themselves in a situation where they're getting diluted over time. So we actually took a different approach, and it's a profit share model. So as a company grows, they're actually able to buy back their equity through a profit share. And we think that's very important because what it does is it optimizes for founder ownership and allows them to make decisions that maybe they wouldn't be able to make if they went on the traditional venture path. And ultimately, we want there to be more stories of Black-owned businesses that were able to be kept in families and passed down through generations. And we think that's kind of how you get to disrupting the wealth gap that we talk about. But all of that and many other kind of factors in the fund were thought about intentionally to solve problems that we see, particularly in the Black entrepreneurial community. And so we're excited to be able to go to market with sort of a new approach that is really centering the target audience that we're going after.
That's so awesome. It hits it on so many levels. It's just so smart. What's been the reception of the fund from the investment community? Are people like, I should be thinking about this all kind of differently, or are you getting pushback?
So things have changed a little bit since we started raising the fund. We started towards the end of last year. And I'd say initially when we introduced this new model, people were like, okay, this is interesting, but I don't know if we'll be the first ones to dive in. But luckily we had early support from the Kauffman Foundation as well as the Rockefeller Foundation, who spent a lot of time with us as we built out the model. And so that was great to have their early sort of buy-in as LPs. And then we went top of the year, kind of started doing our fundraise, and people were, a little timid about it. But when June came around and, our nation was really sort of hit in the face with the realities of racial injustice in this country, people started to reach out a bit more and be more curious about the fact that, we have this intention around Black founders building, particularly in Black communities. And so we've had a lot more interest even since June, given just, the climate that we have in the US today. So I think that people are, once we have a chance to talk to them, they are more open to the fact that we can't just use the same models that have always been used if we want different results. And that for us has been great to be able to kind of step up and say, we've been thinking about this for a long time. It's not new. It's something that, we've really thought about, built something for the audience, for Black entrepreneurs. And so we've been able to have more productive conversations, given sort of the fact that people are just thinking a little bit differently over the last couple of months.
So exciting. I hope all that momentum stays, right? And we keep it going and grow on it.
Yes.
You, in the last couple of months, you also just more recently joined Google for this role of leading up the US Google for Startups team. And it feels like you're also able to use that platform in ways that are reaching founders of color that maybe didn't have as much access before, even from within the Google network. So can you tell us a little bit about your approach there of, first of all, holding true to basing yourself out of Atlanta and not out of Silicon Valley or near us in New York, but also, how is it that you're able to use that platform as a way to make sure that the undertapped talent of founders of color are really getting access to these resources as well?
Yeah, it's been really exciting to be in this capacity back at Google. This is, not my first time at Google, but really excited to be able to lead the Google for Startups team and have this extreme focus on serving underrepresented founders across the country. And even this year, getting to really focus in on Atlanta. So we've done a lot of programming, a lot of work to show up in a big way in the Atlanta ecosystem. But we've also just really focused on how do we support founders, not just with mentorship, not just with programs, but also with capital and with credits and really doing things that can help their businesses grow. And that's been the focus of everything we've done so far is what can we do to really make sure that these businesses, and particularly this year, these businesses have an opportunity to not just, survive through the pandemic, but actually grow and be able to showcase that on the other side. So it's been really exciting to be in this capacity, to be learning from all the incredible entrepreneurs that are doing amazing work in various industries, and then also to be able to show up with all the great things that Google has to offer for these companies, whether it be, experts in machine learning or folks that have brought incredible products to market. That has been great to just see those connections between the founders and Googlers, and then also be able to facilitate even our partnerships. So, we have this partnership with company, we have partnerships across the US, and so being able to scale our work through those partners has also been incredible.
We are so excited to be part of the GFS network, and I think some of our network colleagues are on this call tonight. Just like the passion of this group to share ideas and learn from each other is pretty phenomenal. What kind of momentum you've built around these different ecosystems around the world. It's been great.
Yes. Hello, all the partners who are on the call.
Jewel, I have one last question for you. You wrote recently this beautiful blog about always having to work two jobs. And I think what you got at with this hit on a few levels. One was just having to work twice as hard to prove yourself as a Black woman, as a founder or in the tech industry. And two, some of the systemic racism that you have encountered in the investment space. And I just want to ask this, this, as we come back to this theme of a new capitalism, what do we need to learn? What to you is the lesson that you want everybody on this call to take away as like, this is what that really means when someone like you, who is so talented and has developed such expertise in the areas that you've pursued, like, what do we need to do differently so that across the tech sector we are creating greater opportunity and equity for everyone?
Yes, thank you for bringing up that piece. It was very much a raw illustration of my experiences in technology and in entrepreneurship. And the biggest thing that I hope people would take away from it is just to really examine the work that each of us does every day, and what systems that we're a part of or that we are currently holding up that may be keeping people, great people, out of or away from opportunity. That's really the takeaway that I wanted people to consider, because I've been extremely fortunate. It's not every day that you have someone to be able to build a business and sell it to a company like Amazon and have these great opportunities at Google. I am incredibly blessed and, just have really been able to have a great career. And I still am someone who experiences racism and sexism on just about a daily basis. So I just want people to consider that and think about all the ways in which, even just by working in the places that we work, and not challenging sort of the status quo, that we may be holding up things that are keeping others from opportunities. So as we think about a new capitalism, I just want people to consider, who's not in the room, who's not at the table, who doesn't have a voice here, who by our rubrics and our systems are we keeping away from opportunity. And, that's what I just want people to think more about and really take inventory of how they can make shifts in their own life, in their own work, to make sure that a new capitalism is more inclusive and more people have a shot at success.
It's fantastic. It's, it puts out that call to action to all of us. Like, we all have an active role to play here. And I really hope, just to plug it, that people stay on and participate in the breakout session now, because I know there's a lot of questions for Jewel that we don't have time to get to, but there's a lot of discussion that should be stimulated through these amazing speakers we've had tonight. So please stay on the line. But Jewel, we are so grateful for your time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for working through all of the technology challenges that we've had tonight. Your words are super insightful. Your story is super inspiring, and you will keep us all motivated towards building that better new version of capitalism that actually is equitable for all. So thank you so much, Jewel.
Thank you.